In this video we're going to look at some of the point cloud tools that are available within TBC. Specifically for this video we'll look at the creating and using regions. So I have a data set here that was recorded and registered with the X7, and under the View Filter Manager I have a tab here for point cloud regions. If I expand that, I can see here I have a default region and one for the building. So I've already created this region. Just tap the default and put both together. This is what I've seen beforehand before I created it. All the data from all the scans. So once I created a region, I turn the default off, I'm left with a region of the building. So what it's basically doing is it's just a method of segmenting your data. So you're not actually deleting any data. You're basically just taking, turning off the view of certain parts of the data or what you would like to work with. So to create a region, I'm just going to take this into 3D view. So for instance, part of our building here, you can see I have some internals within it. So it might be that I just decide that I want to basically take a region through, or just create some data through here where I'm only going to see basically I want to see some of the internal data as well, rather than just the roof. So I can use my select tools here. Select an area of the scan. Under the point clouds command, I'm just going to go create region. Basically I've just created a region just looking for the first floor data. Now some of this data here basically I'm actually not wanting to keep. I'm not wanting to keep some of the stuff on the outside. So what I can do is if I go to the polygon select here, I'm just going to sniff around the building. And then what I can do is I can decide that I want to either keep the data outside it or keep the data within the boundary I've created. So say keep in. Now for my first floor I only have this data I've selected. I've basically turned or excluded the other data from my view here that I've created in my region. Now another way of doing it is that you could basically select the data that you don't want. And then rather than turning it on or off, you can actually add it to a region. So by selecting add region, I can then add this information back into the building region. So I've just split my data up. I'm not basically telling it I don't want to remove. I don't want to view any of it at all. If I turn on the building, I have everything else now, excluding that. Turn on the default, I have everything around it. You also have the option here where you can select any number of regions. And then using the merge region command, you can create a new region, merging all the regions back into one together. Now back in one complete region. Also within the regions command you have the option to sample any region. So you may actually prefer to do this with your data set as a whole at the beginning rather than doing it in individual regions. But for instance, on the first floor, if we selected the sample region, and what it will allow you to do is select a sampling type. Now this would usually be spatial. So basically what it's going to do is within this region, or the selected point cloud, it's going to go through and it's going to remove points that don't fall within 2 millimeters. So we're going to basically be spacing out our data to try and keep it, basically simplify our data down to a spacing of around 2 millimeters. It doesn't create any new points, it uses the existing points to do this. So obviously depending on the density of your initial point cloud, the results of this can vary. Once you do this, you can add a prefix to it and it'll basically select another, it will create another point cloud with a point cloud region with the sample data set. And again, you'll see this in your point cloud regions now. You'll have a sampled set for the first floor. But it's reduced the spacing down between points to 2 millimeters. Just taking us back here, just so we've just got the two regions to view again here. One of the other samples you can do is the by intensity value. So it can be quite good for basically separating things out like white lining or perhaps road surfaces. So in here you can create a new region by intensity. You can select the point cloud region that you want to work with. And basically using the RGB scale, we're just lowering down the feedback and returns, so you'll see that we're starting to remove things like cars by changing the low value. If we bring down the high value, so we get more of the cars and less of the building. So basically highly reflective objects you should be able to separate a little bit easier using this. It's just another tool that enables you to basically separate out different types of data by creating new regions from it. A more automated approach for doing this is using the feature classifications within TBC. So if you select this, you'll basically have two options, or two methods. So you have an outdoor classification type and an indoor classification type. So if I select outdoors and I select the point cloud regions I want to work with, I'm just going to select all the data here for this scan. And it gives you some options here what you want to do. So basically you can get it to extract and create a region. So if I click create one region per class, it'll basically give us single regions in here for the buildings, the grounds, vegetation, posts and signs and power lines. It will separate all these out. If I untick this, and for instance I just took buildings and power lines, I'll have one region in here which will contain both buildings and power lines. Just for this option here, I'll just get it, create them individually and hit extract. And I'll just let that run through and come back to it. So depending on how big your data set is, the density of your points, it's going to obviously affect the time it will take just to go through here and classify each one of these regions. So once it's complete, if we're using the region color rendering settings, basically it will show us, depending on the properties in the region, you can set the color of each of them, and under region color this will define the color how you like to view it. So you can see here that it's managed to separate all these elements out into basically different regions, or as best fit as it can do that. So if we turn off the default, the pyramids, so it's basically something, so if it couldn't define it into something, it's basically left it behind. So it's actually quite a good way here of getting rid of some of the cars and stuff like that. Obviously around the bottom of the building it's made a little difficulty with the vegetation. But if we're not interested in that, that's fine, we can turn that off, and it's actually managed to remove quite a lot of the cars and stuff like that as well. So, and people and moving objects. Turn off. So if we were interested in the ground here, for instance, we could get rid of the building, rid of any vegetation, poles and signs, and then we're left with basically the just the extracted ground that we could try and create a surface from. Likewise, if we were going to work with posts, poles, signs, then they've been extracted as well. We can use some of the other, there is some other tools as well there for basically digitising these classifications once they've been created. Likewise, if I just turn on the building default, if I go to my feature classifications again, I'm just going to select this buildings region. So also the buildings here actually contains the internals as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the indoor classification type this time, and I'm looking for the walls, the floors. We don't have any graded floors, I can remove that. Walls, floors and ceilings. Select this here, and then again I'm going to just hit extract. So after a few minutes that will complete the extraction. And again you'll see here we've got a ceiling, floor and our walls created. Just turn off the building. So you'll see this is, it's obviously not a great example, this building, because well, it's a sloping pyramid. Usually you would tidy up the outside, so you just basically have the internals of the building, and then you would run the extraction tool. But you can see here, just as an example, that basically we have created a one here for a ceiling. If we remove that, then we've got another, we have an extraction created for our walls and our floors. It just allows us to easily turn them on and off and work with them individually. Anything that doesn't work out quite right, or it's, for instance, this fence here isn't part of the building, we can just draw a polygon, select around it, and just select add to region and just add it to a different region.